display those photographs on this monitor, this one here. And they decided out a little bit so that the jury can look at this and it's not broadcast all over the world. And not to the family, obviously.
All right, any objection to that by the defense?
We have objection to some of the photographs, but not to the manner in which these listed as such you'd like to proceed.
Okay. The photographs that are objectionable, do you wish to discuss that now or as they are presented?
I think that would be a good idea, Your Honor.
Which one? Which idea is a good idea?
Yours.
Yours is always the good idea.
To discuss it now or as they're presented?
No, to discuss it now, I would
Okay.
think, although they come in through two different witnesses.
All right.
Just wanted you to be aware of it, and maybe we could save some time.
Let's start with what is not objectionable.
That's a good question, Your Honor, because we got everything. Can we deal with the exhibit numbers of the ones he is objected to? Because I have those in order.
No, let's start with the ones that are not objectionable, then we have no problem with those.
Okay.
Then I'll know what I'm comparing objectionable to non-objectionable with.
Your Honor, with Jackie Young, I believe the numbers that are not being objected to would be State's Exhibit 65, 66, excuse me, 65, 68, 69, 70, 71, 72, 73, 75, 76, and 77.
Is that correct, Mr. Slager? Mr. Savage?
Yes, Your Honor, but we'd ask that the court see these exhibits in advance so that if there's an argument for cumulative evidence, the court would have a better idea of why it's.
Yes, sir, I want to see them now. If there's no objection, they're admitted without objection. I'd like to see what do you have here?
No, I'm sorry, I had done all this stuff in order, it's not now all out of order, so we'll just
That happens.
have to deal with it.
We'll take a few moments and let you all confer so we know where we are. Do you agree on any more exhibits?
I believe so, Your Honor. I will do this again as we're going through this just to make sure, but I believe with regard to Detective On, or crime scene investigator On, I already gave you some that he did object to. I think
You need to- For the record, you need to tell me what you agree, what the stipulation is regarding admissibility of those exhibits.
This is 80, 81, 82, 83, 84, 85, I believe all without objection.
Is that correct, Mr. Savage?
That is correct, Your Honor.
All right, those are admitted without objection. Yes, sir. Do you have any that you want to have marked for identification that there is an objection concerning?
We have those set aside,
All right.
Your Honor. It's just a question of whether you want to go with those or want to go through the ones we've agreed.
Say that one more time.
We have those set aside, it's just a question of whether you want to go through those now or go through the ones we have agreed to.
Well, we're going through what you've agreed. Oh, you still have more that you've agreed to?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right.
I believe we are agreed on 86, 87, 88, 89, 90, and 91.
That is correct.
All right, they're admitted without objection. If I can see them.
Yes, sir. Sorry. Your Honor, I believe we're also in agreement on 95, 96, and 101.
That is correct.
All right, they are admitted without objection.
I believe we are in agreement on the state's exhibits 102 through 134.
Did you say what?
102 through 134.
respect to states 102, 103, 104, 105, 106, 107, 108, 109, 110, 111, 112, 113, 114, 115, 116, 117, 118, 119, 120, 121, 122, 123, 124, 125, 126, 127, 128, 129, 130, 131, 132, 133, and 134, we have no objection.
They are all admitted without objection.
With respect to states 233 and 234, we have no objection.
They are admitted without objection.
With respect to states 135, we have no objection.
Submitted without objection.
With respect to states 136, without objection.
Submitted without objection.
States 137, without objection.
Without objection. Admitted without objection.
To states 138, without objection.
And 38 is admitted without objection.
With respect to 139 and 140, without objection.
139 and 140 are admitted without objection.
Your Honor, with respect to 225, 226, 227, 228, 229, and 230, it's not possible to tell what time these photographs were taken, so we will object until they can be authenticated at the time they were taken.
All right, they'll be marked for identification.
If you give me those numbers again, please.
Pardon?
Those numbers, 225, 26.
27,
225, 226, 227, 228, 229, 230. Your Honor, that leaves in dispute, I believe, state 78, 79, 92, 93, 94, 99,
And generally, the basis for the objection to those are what, Mr. Savage?
They're all 403, Your Honor, objections. While they may be probative, we believe that the prejudicial effect outweighs them. But we also believe on the 403 that the cumulative, may I see the
Yes, sir. That's fine. We can do that as well.
Is there a way we could, the court can see?
I just want to understand generally what the objections are, particularly if they're cumulative or more prejudicial than probative. If marked for identification, I can look through them as we proceed with the testimony and rule as they're offered. We don't need to, I can't decide it in a vacuum without any context anyway.
Those Kimberly, that would be the objection.
All right.
All three on a variety of reasons under 403.
Okay, I'll take a look at it. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
All right. You ready for your first witness?
Yes, sir.
All right, if you bring the jury. First witness in here.
Yes, sir.
Good morning. Good morning. All right, welcome back. You may call your next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. State called Scott.
swear or affirm the testimony you shall give the court, the jury, and the trial in this case to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. State your first and last name, and spell your last name loudly, clearly.
Scott Cameron Wyant, W-Y-A-N-T.
Good morning, Mr. Wyatt.
Good morning, sir.
Could you tell the jury where you currently work?
I currently have my own landscaping business.
And prior to that, were you previously employed by the North Charleston Police Department?
That's correct, yes.
And how long were you with North Charleston?
21 years and 3 months.
And of that 21 years and 3 months, what what assignments did you have?
I worked in the patrol division, and I spent 18 years in crime scene in the forensics unit.
And were you working in crime scene for North Charleston Police Department on April 4th of 2015?
That's correct, I was.
And what was your rank and your duties at that time?
I was a supervisor over the crime scene unit at the time of this incident.
And in that capacity, did you have the opportunity to respond to an officer-involved shooting in the area of Craig Street that morning?
That's correct, I did.
And do you recall approximately what time you got there?
I don't recall what time it was, no, sir.
Incidents like this, are you familiar with what's known as a crime scene log?
Yes, sir, I am.
And that log details who comes in and out of the scene, is that correct?
That is correct, yes, sir.
If I showed you that log, would it refresh your recollection as to what time you arrived at the scene?
Yes, it would, thank you.
I'm going to show you what's been marked for identification. It states Exhibit 241. If you could take a look at that and see if it refreshes your recollection, see what time you arrived.
Yes, sir. 10:20 a.m. Thank you.
And prior to arriving at the scene, did you contact any of the other crime scene officers that were working for you at the time?
Yes, sir, I did.
And who was that?
Jackie Ong, she worked for me at the time, and she was in training at the time, and I felt that a call like this would be a good training experience for her.
And in your experience as a North Charleston crime scene officer, in officer-involved shootings involving one of your own, what agency usually investigates those?
SLED does.
And if SLED comes in to investigate those, are they usually responsible for the crime scene processing and decisions that are made at the scene regarding that?
Yes, sir, they are.
And is that what happened in this case?
Yes, sir.
So in this instance, what would you say were your responsibilities and your role to assist SLED?
Normally, they call us out initially until SLED can get there, because SLED crime scene has to come from, I believe, Columbia, so it takes a while for them to get there. And so we kind of help cordon off the scene, secure it, and provide any assistance before, during, and after SLED gets there.
And when you arrived at the scene at approximately 10:20, was Michael Slager still at the scene?
Yes, he was.
And did you know Officer Slager before that day?
Yes, I did.
Were you friends or just acquaintances?
Co-workers, but we had a friendly relationship.
And when you arrived, was the victim in this case, Walter Scott, still at the scene?
Yes, he was.
And can you describe briefly the condition or what you saw when you saw Mr. Scott?
Yeah, when I saw Mr. Scott, he was laying face down, in that vacant lot, and I remember seeing a kit next to him. It's a hazard kit. It's a PPE kit is what they call it, for rendering first aid. It has stuff in their gloves and goggles and breathing apparatus and stuff to render first aid to people. I saw it kind of near his body.
And was Mr. Scott's body covered or exposed at that time?
I believe it was exposed at the time, yeah.
And after your arrival, did you assist in putting a tent over Mr. Scott?
That's correct.
And what was the reason that was done?
It was, at the time, it was drizzling on and off outside, and we put the enclosed tent around his body.
And as you were walking on what they call, you familiar with what they call the Yellow Brick Road or the Yellow Road?
Yes, sir, I am.
And as you were walking in that area towards Craig Street, did you observe any evidence that was potentially related to Officer Slager's taser?
Yes, I did.
And do you recall what you observed?
I observed that I can recall at least one of the what we call fish hooks, or the prongs that was there. The taser has blast doors on the front of it that are green in color. Located a few of those, and the actual cartridges. And
Since it wasn't primarily a North Charleston crime scene, did you collect any of those items?
no, I did not.
What did you do?
At North Charleston, we had business cards that you write case numbers and stuff on for victims and stuff. And I had a stack of those, and we would put them in a tent-type shape, in a triangle-type shape, and put it next to each item that you found, that I found, in an effort to keep those items from being stepped on, tripped over, and also so that when SLED got there, it would make their job a little bit easier in finding, because some of these items were pretty small.
And did you have the opportunity to come into contact with Officer Slager at the scene that morning?
Yes, I did.
And what was the purpose for you coming into contact with him?
Chief Driggers had gotten in touch with me and wanted me to...
Hold on one second before we get into that. I'm going to show you, well, let me ask you this. Did you have the opportunity to take any photographs at the scene that day of Officer Slager?
Yes, I did.
I'm going to show you what has been previously marked for identification as States Exhibits 208 to 218.
Thank you.
If you could just take a little bit of time to look through those, and I'll ask you some questions after you've done that.
Okay, sir.
Do you recognize what's depicted in those photographs?
Yes, I do.
And do those photographs fairly and accurately depict the condition of Officer Slager at the time that you observed him?
Yes, they do.
Your Honor, this time the state would ask to admit Exhibits 208 through 218 in evidence.
Without objection.
Submitted without objection.
We're going to, Your Honor, this time we're going to publish State's Exhibit 208. Can you see that picture back there? It's the same picture that's in front of you. whichever
Yes, sir.
picture you
Yes, sir.
If you can describe to the jury what is depicted in that.
When I take pictures of people or scenes, I take an overall scene. So this was Officer Slager stepped out of that gray Impala that you see there, and I just took an overall shot head to toe of Officer Slager.
And State's Exhibit 209.
And in the same course, I took a picture of head to toe of the backside of Officer Slager to show any, you know.
And 210.
This is a close-up picture of the right side of Officer Slager's shirt with a suspicious stain on it that appeared to me at the time to be blood.
And next photo.
This is a picture of Officer Slager's left leg. pants leg, and also a suspicious stain on there. That appeared to be a blood stain on his left leg. A picture of Officer Slager's lower left leg, his shin area, and it shows a dirt mark on his pants.
And 213.
This is a picture of Officer Slager's right knee. It depicts an abrasion on his, I believe it's B's right knee. This is a picture of Officer Slager's left hand. In the center of his palm, you can see it looks kind of faint, but there's a slight injury there in the middle of his palm. This is a picture of the back of his hand. Looks like he has a small abrasion a few inches from his watch on his left hand.
And states 216.
The back side of Officer Slager's hand, it depicts an injury on his middle finger near the fingernail with blood on it.
And states 217.
A close-up picture of the same finger with trying to depict a little bit closer depiction of the injury and the blood on his finger.
Final states 2.
And the last picture is a picture of Officer Slager's left knee, and it also shows an abrasion and torn skin on his left knee. Sorry.
Mr. Wine, kind of an aside, during your time with North Charleston, as a police officer, were you aware of, or did you ever have the opportunity to use what are known as shirt stays or shirt keepers?
Yes, I have.
Okay, what was your experience with those?
When I was in the patrol division, I more so than not wore shirt keepers. They clamp onto the bottom of your shirt and they go down to your sock, and they're elastic bands, and they keep your shirt pulled down because throughout the business of your day, your shirt will start coming up and it makes your uniform look, and it makes it look bad. So you put the shirt stays on. You got usually 2 on the front, 2 on the back. They keep your shirt pulled taut, so it looks good.
In your experience, how frequently did those things come undone rather easily?
Unfortunately, they come off more often than I'd like to think. Usually the problem I always had was they would come unsnapped from the bottom of my shirt, not my sock, and then next thing you know is you're dragging a shirt stay behind you on the ground.
Now back to the day in question. Did you have the opportunity to escort Mr. Scott's Mercedes as well as Officer Slager's cruiser to a North Charleston warehouse?
Yes, sir, I did.
And do you know where that warehouse is located?
It's located on 5th Street, North Charleston, which is off of Remount Road.
And can you describe for the jury what that facility is and whether it's a secure facility, and if it is, how is that done?
It's a large warehouse, and it is in the compound of the City Hall's new Public Works facility. To get into the compound, first of all, in this case on weekend hours, you have to either you usually have to scan in, with your card. You have to scan in, and the gates will open up automatically. Once you get in the compound, into the back of the compound, then there's another fenced-in area with a fence that's got to be at least 8 feet high with barbed wire around it. It has a lock on it with a combination. Once you get in there, then you have the warehouse, and it has a roll-up door on it and a combination to get in. You punch in a combination to get in. That warehouse also has an alarm on it that you have to punch in the alarm. Once you get inside, you have to punch in the alarm. So once you get in, you have to run to the other side of the building, punch in the alarm, come back, put up the roll-up door for the vehicles to get brought in. So.
And was it normal procedure for vehicles to be stored in that facility pending processing by crime scene unit?
That's correct. We did search warrants and everything in there.
And are you aware if those vehicles were processed by SLED in this case?
Yes, they were.
Thank you. Please answer any questions Mr. Savage may have.
Sure.
Please, the court. Good morning, Mr. Wine.
Good morning, Mr. Savage.
Longtime employee of the North Charleston Police Department, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And 18 years in crime scene?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
And in the crime scene in 18 years, I guess you've seen a variety of evidence collection, photographs, that sort of thing.
That is correct, yes, sir.
Now, when you arrived at the scene that morning, do you know approximately how many other people had been in the crime scene?
No, sir, not prior to my arrival, no, sir.
And do you know whether the crime scene when you arrived had been cordoned off to limit access?
I believe it had been cordoned off.
And do you remember how the crime scene was defined at the time you arrived? Geographically, how was it defined?
I know the street itself was blocked off, and then once you got there, then that vacant lot where the incident occurred, that was blocked off, and then I believe a little bit further in, I'm not positive, it's been a long time, but I believe there's another row of crime scene tape that also cordoned off the scene, I
And
believe.
the photographs that you took would reflect the parameters of the crime scene, is that correct?
For the most part, yes.
And prior to examining the crime scene, if you will, did you have knowledge from any source about what happened that morning in terms of the relationship of Mr. Scott and Officer Slager?
No, none at all.
Did anybody give you the report that was provided by Mr. Slager to the chief that morning, or to Lieutenant Bowman that morning, or to Sergeant Gann that morning, regarding what took place before you examined the crime scene?
No, not at all.
During your processing of the crime scene, were you aware at all about what the facts were that led to the death of Mr. Scott?
No, I was not.
Based on your crime scene analysis, without any information provided prior to that, did it become apparent to you that a taser was used?
I'm sorry, could you ask that one more time? I'm sorry, kind of.
It's my understanding that nobody briefed you on what took place.
That's correct.
So you came in without any prior knowledge of the event.
That's correct.
And during the course of your crime scene analysis, your investigation, you discovered certain items of evidence. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
And as a result of discovering certain items of evidence, you knew based on your experience that a taser had been used.
That's correct, yes.
Is that?
That's correct.
So let's start with the taser.
Can I go back a little bit? I'm sorry, because I don't want to seem dishonest whatsoever. The only thing I knew when I got there, and I'm not positive who informed me, but all I knew was that there was a traffic stop was made, involving Officer Slager at the auto parts store, and that foot pursuit had taken place, and that shots had been fired. Mr. Scott had been shot. That's all I know. So I just want to get that out there.
So you had a general identification of the circumstances that led to...
Yes, but I didn't have any specifics.
And during your investigation, your personal investigation of the crime scene, you discovered, as you have testified earlier, portions of a taser. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
And so you knew then that a taser had been deployed.
Yes, I had.
And you, at some later time, or maybe at the same time, knew that a weapon had been fired.
That's correct, yes.
And you discovered evidence of the deployment and the use of the taser. Is that correct?
Yes, I saw the evidence of the taser.
And that evidence would have been, you could approximate where the taser was deployed in terms of the firing of the taser.
That's correct.
And you could tell that because the evidence that you marked with your business cards would show where the AFIDs, AFIDs were. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
And you could tell where the doors from the taser came off.
That's correct, yes.
And those type of evidentiary investigations would lead a crime scene technician to approximate where the weapon was fired from. Is that correct?
Yes, general idea, yes. I didn't, I knew the case wasn't mine, that it was going to be investigated by SLED, so I didn't, I marked things as I saw them, but I didn't invest a lot of detail into the scene.
But the fact that you marked them indicated your recognition of the importance of where they were found.
Yes, sir.
And it was part of your intent in marking them to make sure that they weren't disturbed. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Because the evidence that counts is the evidence that existed at the time, the precise moment of the incident.
That's correct.
Now, based on your knowledge and experience of tasers, did you discover during the course of your examination of the crime scene how many times the taser was fired with a cartridge?
At least twice.
And based on your knowledge and experience, how many prongs would have been deployed by the taser in those two firings?
It should have been a total of 4 prongs deployed.
And did you then try to identify where the prongs were located?
As I walked around, I found at least the 1 prong, but I didn't find the rest of them.
Well, it would be important, would it not, to find those prongs?
It would be important, yes.
And did you make any attempt to find the prongs that were, the 3 prongs that you didn't find?
No, it did not.
And did Officer Ong, or is she an officer? Or
Yes, she is. Yes,
Officer
sir.
Ong, did you direct her to find the prongs?
No, sir, I did not.
And you're aware, based on your experience and your knowledge of tasers, that you can identify from a prong whether or not the prong was effective in distributing an electrical current. Is that correct?
No, sir.
So 18 years at North Charleston, you were not aware of the importance of the discovery of the prong. Is that correct?
No, I knew the importance of discovering the prongs.
And the importance of discovering the prongs is to examine them.
Exactly, yes. And to find out their location. Yeah, their location is important.
That wasn't done.
Not by me, no.
Was it done under your supervision by Ms. Ong?
That I don't know.
Did you conduct a crime scene search?
No, sir, I did not.
Do you know if anybody, while you were there, conducted a crime scene search?
Yes, they did.
And who did that?
SLED did.
And how many officers were involved in that?
I can recall, it seems like there were 3 crime scene SLED investigators there. And Officer Ong, like I said, she wanted to be there for learning experience. I had known from experience to basically stay out of their way and only offer assistance when needed. Officer Ong wanted to learn from the situation, and so she accompanied the SLED agents, the SLED crime scene agents around the scene to learn as, what was going on. But so Officer Ong and at least 3 SLED crime scene people.
Now, you, though, took photographs, correct?
As far as I know, all I took photographs of were of Mr. Slager, Officer Slager, yes.
So you didn't take any photographs of Craig Street?
I'm sorry, what?
Did you take any photographs of Craig Street?
I don't believe so, not that I recall, no.
Did you take any photographs of Yellow Brick Road?
No, sir.
Did anybody under your supervision do that?
Officer Ong did.
And were those photographs taken at your direction?
No, I wouldn't say I directed her, no, but she did tell me that she wanted to follow around the SLED agents and to learn, and I was fine with that. It was a good learning
But
experience
she
for
had
her.
no experience.
She had very little experience in crime scene, yes.
Has she ever investigated a homicide?
Yes, yes, she has.
And did she do that under your direction?
Yes, yes, she has.
So she would know what to photograph and what not to photograph, what was important, is that correct?
That's correct, yes. Plus, she had prior crime scene experience at her previous department that she worked for.
So the vehicles that were towed were both Mr. Scott's vehicle and Officer Slager's vehicle?
That's correct, yes.
And you secured them in a warehouse?
Yes, sir, they were secured in the warehouse, yes, sir.
Did you photograph them?
I don't believe that I did, no.
Were those vehicles photographed at some time?
Yes, they were.
And was there an inventory taken of what was in the vehicle?
Yes, there was.
And have you seen that inventory?
No, I have not.
Why do you think an inventory was taken?
It is common practice in my 18 years that every time you tow a vehicle, you do an inventory of the vehicle before you have it towed because you are responsible for the contents of the vehicle. Anything comes up missing. So you would put down, you know, if you found a car stereo or a wallet or a purse or something, you want to put that on your inventory sheet or your tow sheet. And the tow truck driver signs that sheet and therefore taking responsibility for that. So you're acknowledging that that item was in the car when the tow truck driver recovered the car. Therefore, once he gets it and he signs for it, if it shows up missing later, now it's on him.
And the importance of an inventory sheet is to show where items were in a vehicle, is that correct?
Not necessarily where they were, but that they did exist within the vehicle, yes.
And you have not seen an inventory sheet in this case?
On this case, no, sir.
On that morning that you were there, what time did you arrive according to the law?
10:20 in the morning.
So approximately 50 minutes after the incident.
I assume so, yes, sir.
And how long after your arrival did you take the photographs that have been introduced into evidence of Mr. Slager?
I had probably been there probably close to 45 minutes or so before I had gotten told to take those pictures.
And you were directed to take those pictures by Chief Griggers?
That is correct, yes.
And do you know whether or not Mr. Slager's condition and the condition of his clothing in terms of dirt and his hands and other areas that you photographed were the same as they were immediately after the incident?
I can't say that they were the same, no, sir.
In fact, the photographs that you took of his fingers that have been introduced, he had already cleaned up, isn't that correct?
I don't know that for sure, but it looks like he had at least wiped them off on his clothes, because that's where I assume the blood had come from.
And you can tell that the uniform had been cleaned by a hand motion
That's correct, yes.
because you could see the blood stain on his shirt. And the blood stain was not a natural blood stain, but one that had been swept.
It looked like it had, yes.
So the photographs that have been introduced are not how Officer Slager looked immediately after the incident, but they are how he looked after he had an opportunity to clean up. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
That morning, did you participate in any forensic examination for trace evidence?
No, sir, I did not.
Were you instructed not to conduct any attempts to obtain trace evidence?
No, I was not.
Does the report that you made on this case indicate that you were instructed to take photographs and not to do a trace evidence examination of the hands of Officer Slager?
What I was instructed to do by Chief Driggers was he wanted me to do a GSR kit, which is a gunshot residue test kit on Officer Slager's hands, and he wanted me to take pictures of him and any injuries that he may have. Yes.
And you were instructed not to do the forensic analysis, is that correct?
No, sir, that's not correct.
Does your report indicate that you were instructed not to do a GSR on the officer's hands?
From what had happened was, from my experience, SLED would do those kind of things. They had 6 hours to do the GSR kit on his hands. In my experience, I didn't want there to be any appearance of impropriety by getting involved. For instance, whenever one of the officers, like say myself, gets into an accident, we don't have another North Charleston officer come and work the accident scene because we don't want it to appear the appearance of favoritism or impropriety. So another agency, usually like the South Carolina Highway Patrol, will come work the accident. So for example, in this incident, I didn't want there to be any appearance of impropriety, so I instructed, I believe it was Deputy Chief Deckard. I told him that I did not think it was a good idea to do the GSR kit on Officer Slager's hands, that I thought it would be more appropriate, that because we normally would let SLED do that and not get so involved. And he said he said he would tell the chief, and they came back and said, that's fine, but go ahead and take the pictures. So I went ahead and did as instructed and took pictures.
I want you to look at this document, see if you can identify it, and see if it helps refresh your memory of your recollection that day.
Yes, I do.
And you've had 18 months or so to correct any mistake you have made.
Yes, that's correct.
And in your statement, you wrote down that you were instructed by the chief deputy not to take a trace evidence examination of Mr. Slager's hands.
Yes, that's correct.
Now, a trace evidence examination would include gunshot residue.
That's correct, yes.
It would include fabrics or fibers. Is that correct?
Yeah, trace evidence could include that.
Trace evidence includes a number of items that can be examined. And in this case, they could be examined for the transfer from one person to the other of minute qualities of, as they say, trace evidence. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
So if there had been a fight, and there had been a knockdown fight where people were grappling with each other, in 18 years, everybody with your experience would know that there are minuscule transfers of trace evidence from one body to the other. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
And no such examination was done by you, or by Officer Ong, or by SLED. Is that correct?
I can't speak for them. I just know that I did not do it, yes.
Or was it done under your supervision?
No, not, as far as I know, it was not.
And based on your knowledge and experience, the shirt that you saw, it's difficult in the photograph to see the blood, but you saw the blood. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
And you also know, based on your experience, that blood can come out in a number of different ways. It can be dripped, it can be soaked, it can be displayed on clothing from a number of methods.
That's correct, yes.
And you can find blood stains that are invisible to the eye, is that correct?
Yes, you can,
And how do you do that?
with an alternate light source. An alternate light source would pick up blood and body fluid that you would not normally see with the naked eye.
So that if somebody, any type of bodily fluid, whether it's blood or whether it's spit or anything like that, could be found on a dark blue shirt, is that correct?
Can you repeat your question? I'm sorry. It sounded more like a statement than it
I
was.
have a bad tendency to do this, I apologize. When you see my suit that I have on today,
Yes,
it's not necessarily indicative by the eye, by looking at it, whether or not somebody sitting next to me may have contributed some bodily fluid to my suit.
I understand. The darker color suit, it would definitely be harder to see with the naked eye, and you'd have to use alternate means to see any kind of fluids or
But there's a way to do
serology.
that,
Yes, there is.
and it would require using an alternate light source or some other method.
That's correct, yes.
And once you identify the naked to the eye or the invisible to the eye bodily fluid, it's possible then to do a DNA comparison. Is that correct?
That is possible, yes.
So the search for the transfer would first be done by the naked eye, correct?
Correct, yes.
And then with an alternate light source.
Yes,
And then you would take an exemplar of that either with a Q-tip or with the fabric itself and look for DNA.
correct. You tested for DNA.
You know whether that was done in this case?
I do not know, no.
If you had been aware that there was a fight reported between Mr. Scott and Officer Slager that morning, if you had been told that, what type of evidence would you have looked for to confirm the fact of the fight?
I would have looked for, if possible, markings on the ground, because a lot of times a tussle, you'll see the disturbed, dirt and grass and ground and things like that. I would look for dirt and dishevelment of Officer Slager and on Mr. Scott. Dirt on the clothes, dirt on the hands, their hair out of sorts and tearing of the clothing and things of that nature.
How about dirt inside the flat pocket on Officer Slager's shirt?
It's possible.
And if there was dirt inside the flap of Officer Slager's shirt, what would that indicate to you?
It would indicate that it possibly could have come from some sort of altercation or tussle.
And to-
Possible.
And to confirm that, you would take the dirt where the altercation took place and do a dirt comparison. Is that correct?
SLED could do that, yes. They could compare the dirt and look at the dirt.
Beg the court's indulgence, one moment. Thank you, Mr. Moore.
Thank you, sir.
Can you redirect?
Mr. Wine, just to clarify what you were asked by Mr. Savage on the cross, your direction from Chief Deckard Deputy Chief Decker to not do the GSR kit came after you had expressed your concerns, is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
So it wasn't just a blanket, Cole walks in, gives the order, you had actually expressed some concerns, and he essentially agreed?
That is correct, although the statement that Mr. Savage showed me, it said Deputy Chief Decker instructed me not to do GSR. That's what took place, is that I was instructed to do GSR and take pictures, and by Chief Driggers, and I went to DC Decker, and I expressed my concern because we don't normally get that involved in officer-involved shootings and altercations.
And Mr. Savage also pointed out that, or asked you in your testimony if it appeared that Mr. Slager had the opportunity to clean up before the pictures were taken. I believe he testified that it appeared that he had cleaned up.
Somewhat, yes,
He had
yes.
cleaned his hands.
Yes, in some degree, yes.
And in your experience, if an individual has the opportunity to wash their hands or clean their hands or put some substance on their hands, that would directly impact the ability and even the necessity to take trace evidence, do trace evidence examinations. Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah.
And regarding the questions you were asked about if there was dirt present inside a uniform pocket, if there is dirt inside a uniform pocket, it doesn't necessarily come from a struggle, does it?
No, not necessarily.
In the course of your day as a police officer, you're constantly in and out of your pockets, is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
I believe at some point most people will carry business cards or a notepad or a Miranda card inside their pocket.
Yes, sir.
So if you have dirt on your hands from whatever you were doing and you pick those things up in and out, it's going to go, it could go into your pocket just as well.
It could, yes, feasibly go in your pocket.
And regarding the time that elapsed between your arrival on the scene and the photographs being taken of Mr. Slager's injuries, in your experience, is it true that abrasions and bruises actually become more visible as time passes?
Yes, from my experience, they do. Yes.
Thank you. No further questions.
Further cross-examination?
No, sir.
All right, thank you, sir. You may step down.
Your Honor, am I released from
Yes, sir. All witnesses are excused unless there's an objection, once they step down. Next witness, please. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll have you go to the jury room for a few minutes. Please do not discuss the case. Yes, sir.